Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. This is the 17th part of What If Deku Was a Magical Girl Mascot, Quirk, Magical Girl Mascot. The author of this great fanfic is Emma. I will leave links to them and original story in the description. Chapter 17, Izuku and Katsuki's Bond. Todoroki was in shock. She couldn't stop staring at her new additions. She was placed into one of the waiting rooms with Midnight explaining that Izuku had gone missing after the match and that the staff was looking all over for him. But Todoroki wasn't paying attention, not really. A few minutes later, Katsuki entered the room. Todoroki looked at her. "If you want to get out of the costume, just focus on changing back," said Katsuki. Todoroki nodded and de-transformed, however she found that she was still a girl. "Why am I girl?" she demanded. "It's the damn side effect. Izuku warned you, but you didn't listen to him," muttered Katsuki. "How did you even know about it?" asked Todoroki, glaring at Katsuki. Katsuki glared back at Todoroki. "How? It doesn't make any sense for you to even know about there being a side effect, unless," said Todoroki. The words died on her lips as she looked at Katsuki's glare and realized what she was saying with the glare. "You were," said Todoroki. "A guy," said Katsuki, finally sitting down. "Yeah, but it was so long ago, I barely remember being one." Todoroki was looking at her new necklace, which was a lavender gem. "You really fucked up icy hot," muttered Katsuki. "What?" asked Todoroki. "Deku's missing," muttered Katsuki. "He ran off after you bonded. And I know Deku. He wouldn't bond with you, so it had to have been an accident. I wanted to prove to everyone that he was lying about the side effect," said Todoroki. "And instead you showed the entire world what his quirk does to guys," muttered Katsuki, "not to mention the guilt Izuku constantly feels about my change." "What?" asked Todoroki. Katsuki sighed and knew she had to tell the story. Flashback. A young Izuku and Katsuki were walking through the forest together. Both of them were normal little boys, as in no rabbit ears or a dog tail. And Katsuki, well, he was a boy. "Wow, Kaken," said Izuku, "your quirk is so cool. I hope when I get my quirk it will be just as cool as yours." "Let's just see when you get your quirk, but I doubt it," laughed Katsuki, looking back at his friend. That was when he saw his friend being engulfed by green smoke. "Deku?" asked Katsuki. When the smoke cleared, Katsuki couldn't help but to state. In Izuku's place was a little green bipedal animal that had rabbit ears and a dog's tail, and on its forehead was a dull gray stone. The animal blinked. "Kaken? Did you just bigger?" asked the animal with Izuku's voice. "Deku?" asked Kaken. "What?" asked Izuku. Then Izuku looked down at his body. "What just happened?" asked Izuku. "I don't know," yelled Katsuki. "Do you think it was a villain?" asked Izuku. "Probably," said Katsuki. "We have to go, Kaken, or it might happen to you," cried Izuku. Katsuki nodded and they both started to run. "Kaken!" cried Izuku. Katsuki looked back and saw that Izuku was having a much harder time than usual trying not catch up. Katsuki realized, because he was much smaller, so it made sense he was having a hard time. Katsuki ran back and grabbed Izuku and then united to run. Thankfully they were out of the woods and they found their way to the Midoriya apartment. Katsuki held on to his friend as he knocked on the door as hard he could. "Auntie! You better open the door or I will blow it up!" yelled Katsuki. Inko opened the door. "Oh, Katsuki, is everything all right?" asked Inko. Auntie! It's Izuku!" yelled Katsuki, knowing not to use the nickname in front of his mother. "What's wrong?" asked Inko. "Mommy!" whimpered Izuku in Katsuki's arms. She looked down at what she assumed was a stuffed toy in Katsuki's arms. Izuku, whispered Inko. Izuku nodded. Inko fainted. Mommy! Cried Izuku, jumping out Katsuki's arms and running to his mom. Katsuki muttered under his breath and called his mom using the Midoriya house phone. Inko, is everything okay? Asked Mitsuki on the other end. No, you old hag. Deku got turned into a weird talking animal and Auntie just fainted because of it, said Katsuki. What? Asked Mitsuki. Didn't you heard what I just said? Yelled Katsuki. Sometime later Mitsuki did show up and still wasn't sure how to repose to all this, other than taking them to the hospital. Inko was fine, she just fainted. However, Izuku was put through a barrage of tests to see if it was because of someone else's quirk or his own new quirk. As it turned out, it was his own quirk. A few days after the transformation, Izuku was telling Katsuki what the doctor told him at the park. So this is your quirk? Said Katsuki. Izuku nodded. Your quirk is lame, said Katsuki. Kaken! Cried Izuku. You're stuck as a small animal, how can it not be lame? Asked Katsuki. The doctors think it's a transformation quirk and I can turn back once I figure it out, said Izuku. Really? Asked Katsuki. Izuku nodded. So how you going to do it? Asked Katsuki. I don't know, the usual ways that everyone's been me hasn't been working, said Izuku. I mines as well help you, muttered Katsuki, since you can't seem to do it. Really? Asked Izuku. Katsuki nodded. Thank you, Kaken! Cried Izuku. And that was when suddenly a light came from the stone on Izuku's forehead. What is this? Asked Katsuki as the light floated towards him. I don't know. But I know it has to do with my quirk, said Izuku. Katsuki poked the light and suddenly he was engulfed in bright orange light. When the light cleared, he was in what would be known as his magical girl costume. What the? Yelled Katsuki, why am I in a skirt? I don't know. Cried Izuku, wait, is your voice different? Whatever it, must be you, muttered Katsuki. Katsuki on the other hand wanted out of the weird outfit and thought back to changing clothes and it was back to normal. Weird, said Katsuki. How did you do that? Asked Izuku. I just focused back on turning back, said Katsuki. Izuku blinked. I tried it already but it feels different than before, said Izuku. Izuku focused on turning back human and he did, mostly. I'm human again, cheered Izuku. Mostly, said Katsuki. What do you mean mostly? Cried Izuku. That was when he saw that he still had his tail. I still have my tail, said Izuku. You're still part bunny too, said Katsuki. Izuku touched his ears and found that they still rabbit ears. However, that was when Izuku felt something else he could do. Deku, what is it? Asked Katsuki. That was when Izuku pushed whatever it was and suddenly his palms exploded. What the? Yelled Katsuki. What was your quirk, Kaken? Cried Izuku. How? Yelled Kaken. I don't know, said Izuku. That was when Izuku felt like he had to sneeze and when he turned he transformed back to his animal form. Seriously, Deku? Asked Katsuki. I don't know why that happened, said Izuku. Wait, can you turn back? Asked Katsuki. Izuku nodded, but then Katsuki stopped him. Wait, he said. What it is? Asked Izuku. It's that thing on your forehead, it's now orange, said Katsuki. Really? Asked Izuku. Katsuki nodded. I want to see it, said Izuku. They went to the restroom so that Izuku could see it. Katsuki held up Izuku in animal form so that Izuku could see the gem. Wait, said Izuku, noticing something in the reflection. What is it? Asked Katsuki. Izuku pointed to the necklace that appeared on Katsuki's neck. Where did this come from? Asked Katsuki. He grabbed the necklace in a certain way and suddenly he was back in the magical girl costume. Seriously? Yelled Katsuki. He dropped Izuku. Hey! Cried Izuku. He turned back human. Katsuki sighed as his clothes once again returned to normal. I guess grabbed it turns my clothes into that weird outfit again. Muttered Katsuki. Oh, weird. Said Izuku. Katsuki then headed to the toilet. I got to pee. Said Katsuki, so you better wait. Katsuki headed to the toilet and then screamed. Kaken! What's wrong? Asked Izuku. My pee-pee's gone. Yelled Katsuki, panicking. What? Yelled Izuku. They went to their mothers to tell them as they were in the park with them. They saw as their children ran towards them. Izuku! You're human again! Cried Inko, surprised. However, her son didn't say anything about that. Hag! My pee-pee's gone! Yelled Katsuki. What? Yelled Mitsuki, who looked like an older female version of her son. They went to the bathroom so that Katsuki could show his mom. Inko and Izuku were waiting outside when they heard Mitsuki scream, "What the fuck?" She took out Katsuki. We're going to the hospital. Now, said Mitsuki. What happened? Asked Inko. Well, I have a daughter now. Said Mitsuki. Hag! Yelled Katsuki. Wait. Katsuki is a girl? Asked Izuku, do you think it has something to do with my quirk? What do you mean? Asked Inko. Fine, I'll show them. Said Katsuki grumpily. She grabbed the necklace and they saw the magical girl costume. Katsuki then turned back. How did this happen? Asked Inko. Izuku explained as best as he could what happened, including the fact he could use Katsuki's quirk. And they knew that they had to take the hospital. Both of them were subjected to tests. Even more so when Izuku reverted back to animal and couldn't change back. Though the doctors theorizes it was time limit as they can couple check another time if this was the case. However, once the tests were done, they had gave the news to both mothers and both children. What do you mean it's permanent? Asked Katsuki. It's rare for a quirk like this to be permanent, but in this case it is. Said the doctor. Can't we find another quirk that changed someone's gender? Said Mitsuki. No. I'm sorry, it could be a huge risk. Said the doctor, while there are some known permanent gender-bending quirks, we don't know what might happen. Katsuki was in shock over this. Kaken! Whispered Izuku. Well, I always a daughter anyway. Said Mitsuki. Mitsuki! Scolded Inko. Hag! Yelled Katsuki. Izuku just looked at Katsuki. The next day, when they went to the school, a lot of the kids were staring at Katsuki. So Deku turned you into a girl? Said one of the other kids. What of it? Yelled Katsuki, getting angry. Girls are weaker than boys, you know. Taunted a boy. Yeah, everyone knows it. Teased another one. Izuku watched this, unsure what to do. But it was clear he made a choice about something. Over the course of the next few weeks, Izuku avoided Katsuki while at school. This made Katsuki angry. Does he really think he's better than me after turning me into a girl? If it weren't for me, he'd still be an animal all the time? She thought. Though it was clear that Izuku could only be in human form for 2 hours a day. A lot of the time when he was in animal form, he kept creating the light. He told any student nearby to not touch it, and his classmates avoided the light to make sure they wouldn't change gender. Then one day she noticed that Izuku's gem wasn't just orange, but also switched with a bright green. Not only that, but he was able to hold onto his human form for longer. But due to the fact that Izuku still avoided her, she wasn't able to ask about it. That night she was in her room when suddenly she heard a voice. "Mommy!" called out the voice. And she recognized it as Izuku. "Izuku?" he heard Inko's voice. Katsuki looked around wondering why he was hearing their voices. "No way! I found out another ability," she heard Izuku say. "All right," he heard Inko cheer, "we can talk telepathically." "That means to talk each other in our minds, right?" asked Izuku. "That's right," said Inko's voice. "Amazing," cheered Izuku. "You should try this with Katsuki," said Inko's voice. That was when Katsuki felt an overwhelming guilt and sadness. "I can't," said Izuku. "Why not?" asked Inko. From her tone of voice it was clear that she was feeling his guilt and sadness too. "Because I heard Kaken," she heard Izuku cry out. Katsuki began to cry. "I heard Kaken too much. Kaken's no longer a boy and it's my fault," cried Izuku. "I can't be friends with someone I hurt." "Izuku, please calm down," begged Inko. "Also please turn off the telepathy. I think I feel your emotions." "Okay," Izuku whimpered. "Wait," cried Katsuki. But she couldn't hear Izuku's voice, nor could she feel the sadness and guilt. Katsuki continued to cry. She realized that's why he was avoiding her. He thought he hurt her. Not because he was looking down on her. She waited until she was done with crying, then went to talk to her mom. "Mom!" she yelled, "I need to see Deku." "Look, it's late, brat!" yelled Mitsuki. "I know that. But I still do see him," said Katsuki. Mitsuki noticed that her daughter had been crying. "Fine," muttered Mitsuki, "I'll call Inko." Katsuki nodded. And so Mitsuki called Inko. "Oh, Mitsuki, is something wrong?" asked Inko on the other end. "I don't know. But the brat suddenly demanded to see Izuku." "I don't know why," said Mitsuki. "She looked like she was crying too." "What?" asked Inko. "It's true," sighed Mitsuki. "I wonder," said Inko. "Did something happen?" asked Mitsuki. I bonded with Izuku," said Inko. "What?" asked Mitsuki. "That's what we decided to call what he does with his quirk," said Inko. "Earlier Izuku discovered a new ability and we were able to talk telepathically." "Really?" asked Mitsuki. "It sounds like Izuku's going to be really overpowered." "Mitsuki," muttered Inko. Sorry, said Mitsuki. "But when we did it, I was also able to feel his emotions as one point," said Inko. "He think he hurt Katsuki because of the gender swap, and I felt what he's feeling." "Oh," said Mitsuki. "He's been avoiding Katsuki because of that," said Inko. "Wait, you don't think Katsuki," said Mitsuki, "heard and felt it too?" asked Inko. Mitsuki sighed at this. They decided to have the two have a playdate the next day. It was decided to bring Katsuki over to the Midoriyas due to the fact that if Izuku found out he was going to Katsuki's house, he might do something. Mitsuki and Katsuki got to the apartment. "Who's at the door, mommy?" asked Izuku. Then she saw it was Mitsuki and Katsuki. "You should show Katsuki your new furniture," said Inko. Izuku didn't say anything and only nodded. The two mothers looked at each other and sighed. The two kids went into Izuku's room. Katsuki stared at the tiny bed and a couple tiny chairs. Why do you have a tiny bed? Asked Katsuki. If I don't run out of time and I fall asleep as a human, I turn back, said Izuku. Katsuki nodded. Are you wearing a dress? Asked Izuku. The hag has started dressing me up in dresses, muttered Katsuki, glaring at Izuku. She has I can't wear boy pants until I'm older. Izuku blinked and wondered what that meant. Katsuki then smacked Izuku, forcing him to go back into animal form. Why did you hit me, Kaken? Cried Izuku. What makes you think you hurt me? Cried Katsuki. What? Asked Izuku. I heard you and Auntie last night. Cried Katsuki. What makes you think you hurt me? Izuku looked down. I heard girls are weaker, said Izuku, and they're idiots, yelled Katsuki. Izuku looked up. I'm still going the number one hero. And I will beat All Might, yelled Katsuki. It doesn't matter if I'm a girl or a boy. But, said Izuku, you didn't hurt me. So stop feeling sad and guiltily, yelled Katsuki. But, cried Izuku. No, yelled Katsuki, stop it. You didn't hurt me. She smacked him again. Kaken, cried Izuku. Are you going to think you hurt me? Asked Katsuki. No, said Izuku. Good, said Katsuki, so tell me how I was able to hear your voice. I can speak to you and mommy with my mind, thought Izuku, turning on the telepathy. What? Asked Katsuki. Is everything okay? Asked Inko's voice. I heard Katsuki, but it was muffled. Kaken talked out loud, thought Izuku. Is this working? Thought Katsuki. It is, thought Inko. Can you make it so it's just you and Katsuki? Izuku looked like he was focusing something. No, I can't, thought Izuku. Maybe you should talk out loud and turn off the telepathy, thought Inko. Okay, thought Izuku. How did you find out? Asked Katsuki. I bonded with mommy, said Izuku, blushing. Bonded? Asked Katsuki. That's what we decided to call what we did with the light, said Izuku. Really? Why? Asked Katsuki. Well, it's that I get your quirks in, said Izuku. No, I meant why did you bond with Auntie? Asked Katsuki. I did the light thing again and she decided to do grab it because she knew I needed help with my quirk, explained Izuku. Why didn't she turn into a guy? Asked Katsuki. I don't know, said Izuku. Katsuki pouted a little. I'm so sorry, cried Izuku. Stop apologizing, yelled Katsuki. Okay, said Izuku. If you're going to be a hero, you better get used to my quirk, said Katsuki. What? Asked Izuku. You still want to be a hero, don't you? Asked Katsuki. Izuku didn't answer. Come on, we have to figure out the necklace you gave me, said Katsuki. I don't think it's a good idea while inside, said Izuku. Whatever, said Katsuki. No explosions in the house, yelled Mitsuki, especially in houses that aren't yours. How does she know? Yelled Katsuki. I don't know, said Izuku with a sweat drop. End of flashback. As we learn more about the abilities that Deku gave me, we realize that it was magical girl powers and it only caused gender bends in guys, muttered Katsuki. I see, said Todoroki. He still blames himself, said Katsuki. As we got older, I started to get bullied for not being a real girl. And the fact that I stuck by him after he turned me into one. Why do you protect him? asked Todoroki. Remember about that guilt and sadness I felt? Said Katsuki. I don't remember much about being a guy, but that on the other hand. I remember that feeling. Todoroki's eyes widened. I refuse to let Izuku feel that way again if I can help it. Said Katsuki. That makes sense. Said Todoroki. By the way, have to check out yourself in the mirror? Asked Katsuki. I don't want to. Muttered Todoroki. You might want to look at your face at least. Said Katsuki. Why? Asked Todoroki. Trust me on it. Said Katsuki. Do you have mirror on you? Asked Todoroki. Do I look like that kind of girl? Asked Katsuki. Todoroki's sweat dropped. Meanwhile in the hallways of the arena, All Might in his thin form was searching for Izuku. He had gotten word that Principal Nizu, who was watching one of the other year's sports festival, along with the 4 teachers' running staff, had joined in the search, along with hearing that Achiko, Tsuyu and Ida were helping in the search. He was also surprised to hear that Ida had learned about the side effect, but was happy that he did open up to one of the class's mates he didn't have a bond with. That was when he stepped in a puddle. He looked down, saw it was near a vending machine, a snack vending machine, not a drink vending machine, meaning there wasn't some sort of cooling leak. He went into his muscle form and looked around the vending machine. That was when he found the small stuffed toy-like animal crying. Young Midoriya, said All Might. Izuku froze. He didn't think he was going to be found. How did you find me? Cried Izuku. All Might pointed to the puddle on the floor. Izuku stopped crying and started to blush. All Might noticed the gem now had lavender added to its array of colors. Considering I had to change my socks thanks your mother's tears, it'll make sense that you cry just as much. Laughed All Might. Izuku couldn't help but to chuckle. All Might sat down the floor. So the entire staff knew about it, said Izuku. We were told just in case, said All Might. I didn't mean to make a bond. Izuku, as he started to cry again, I really didn't. I just wanted to help him. He refuses to use his fire. I was just trying not get him to use it, and, well, your quirk responded to you wanting to help him, by trying to bond with him. Sighed All Might. Izuku cried a little more. Kaken doesn't think I hurt her by bonding with her. But I did. She wouldn't have been bullied if we hadn't. She wouldn't have to question who she is. Cried Izuku. She considers herself a girl now, but for a long time, she just wasn't sure. But I'm sure if you didn't bond, the two of you wouldn't be as close, said All Might. Izuku didn't respond. And it won't be like how it was when you were younger. It's not just you and young Bakugo anymore. Young Uraraka, young Azui and young Ida are all helping look for you. No matter what happens, I know they will stick by you and young Todoroki. Izuku was quiet. What about Kaken? Asked Izuku. She went to talk to Todoroki. Sighed All Might. Izuku nodded. You shouldn't worry your mother and friends anymore, said All Might. Come on. Izuku nodded and knew he couldn't keep hiding. But he wasn't in a mood to be in human form at the moment, and it was clear to All Might, who picked him up. He took out his cell phone and gave the message to the teachers that he was found. However, he and everyone else had been given instructions to bring Izuku to the waiting room that Todoroki was brought to. All Might sighed. He knew what was going to happen in that waiting room wasn't going to be pleasant for sure. Back in the waiting room, both Katsuki and Todoroki were silent. Katsuki was checking her phone, however, and got a text from Inko that All Might had found Izuku. All Might found Deku and is bringing him here, said Katsuki. Why? Asked Todoroki. Oh, I don't know, maybe because you're a girl now, said Katsuki, glaring at him, and you're also telepathically connected to him, too. Todoroki nodded. That was when the door opened, however it was Inko. Looks like I beat them, said Inko. You're the principal's assistant, said Todoroki. It's nice to meet you, my name is Izuku Midoriya, said Inko. Todoroki's eyes widened and she looked at Katsuki. She got hired after the USJ thing because of the bond, said Katsuki. Oh, that makes sense, said Todoroki. She looked at Izuku's mother. Do you have a hand mirror? Said Todoroki. Inko was confused for a second but then realized why she was being asked that. Of course, she said. She gave Todoroki the compact and Todoroki looked at her new reflection. She noticed two things. One thing was she did look a little like his mother. However, that wasn't the biggest change. The scar, it was gone. It's gone, cried Todoroki, I can't believe it. That was when All Might and Izuku came into the room. Izuku went on edge. Todoroki, said Izuku. How? Said Todoroki, how is my scar gone? Izuku was surprised he hadn't noticed that it was gone earlier, but now that he saw her face was completely pristine. I don't know, said Izuku, there's a lot I don't know about my quirk. I didn't know it could heal until I bonded with Achiko. I didn't know the healing was that powerful. Todoroki nodded. Todoroki, said Izuku. Don't apologize, said Todoroki, I was the one who didn't listen. You tried to stop me, but this is all my fault. Katsuki glared at Izuku as if saying, don't try to feel guilty this time. Izuku nodded. That was when three more entered. Principal Nizu, Aizawa, and Endeavor. So, are we going to talk about what you did to my son? Asked Endeavor. Izuku froze when he saw Endeavor. This wasn't going to be a pleasant conversation at all. And it was going to be a conversation that would change everything. That will be it for this part. I hope everyone enjoyed. If you did, please leave a like and comment if you want part 18. If you want to hear more from me, subscribe. I hope to see you all in the next one.